Generally, I read every day. I'm a prolific reader. There's so much so that the house has to be modelled around my book collection. So I'm being pushed out to the garden in the next few months because the book collection's just got so huge. But I do love books. My book today is George Orwell's 1984, an all-time classic. Not a light read. I am a great fan of George Orwell, especially as a young man. I went everywhere that George Orwell has been, the battlefields he's been on, the cafes he walked and so on. So I love George Orwell. And then recently I rediscovered Orwell's work in light of current events, and 1984 is one of those salutary books which I think has got a lot to give to a current audience, let alone the 1940s audience. So the novel is set in a post-war dystopia is the lovely word, dystopia, isn't it? Dystopia, where everything's going wrong, but of course there is a party, a state that runs everything and keeps the population in a state of fear and trepidation. They're worried about what the future is going to be, and yet all the time they're pumping out propaganda that the people must obey. Winston is a thoughtful character. He decides that he's actually part of the state, he's part of the government rewriting history. So if the characters fall foul of the government and the government want to erase them from history, then Winston's job is to remove them from the history books, remove them from the newspapers. And from that position he can actually see that the problem with the society, the problem with the country is built on a lie, a permanent lie. He explores more at great risk to himself because the whole state is monitored through screens. And he starts his fight back. He writes a diary just to correct himself so that he can remember what's going on and tackle the lie. But then he moves forward then and gets further and further into investigating, discovers a bookshop, sees the old ways and realises that there was a past before the party. And that obviously leads him in trouble with the party, and he gets arrested, and it's a series of, it's not a frightening book in terms of physical problem, but it is very psychological what they do to him to convince him that he has to toe the line and he has to be part of Big Brother's state. One of the things I think which makes it a most powerful book, but also a very disturbing book. When you are a child, you think, I'm going to be the hero, I'm going to be the thing. But one of the features of 1984 is, if you were in that society, would you be the one to speak out? Would you be the one to say, hang on a minute, that didn't happen like that? Or would you more likely, and I think, historical events show, would you be the one who would go along with it? I don't necessarily be part of these horrors which have happened in history, but would you actually keep your mouth shut and think, well, others know better, or the state or the party knows better?